Video number 4 for the final exam study guide for 7th grade. Here we go. Let's look at 38. What were the two nations that were the most dominant during the Age of Exploration? The keyword is nations. Portugal, who really started it, and Spain. This is why South America speaks predominantly Portuguese and Spanish. If you also think about it, those two nations are Europeanly closest. That's not a word, Europeanly. They are the closest European nations to the Americas. So it was easy for them. Also, their shipping industry was excellent at the time. Now, we had many pros and cons to exploration. One of the pros is we're here right now. That would be bad if we weren't here right now. But let's take a look at this. The pros was that it expanded the empires. The nations got larger because they had more land and more resources, natural resources. Also, it spread out their culture, so that way they could force upon others their culture of language, religion, etc. Also, I just said that, religion and values. This also proved to show the dominance at the sea and the dominance of the Navy and the dominance of the military. Now, there were some cons. Disease spread from Europe to North and South America. A lot of these diseases had never been experienced by North and South Americans, and they struggled to fight against those diseases. So it was not easy. 90% of the natives died because of disease. Also, the idea of race-based slavery. The introduction of Africans to be enslaved in, quote-unquote, the New World to the Europeans, basically bringing Africans across the ocean to be enslaved. That's horrible. The conquering of innocent people in the North and South American Caribbean island areas. These natives have been living there for thousands of years, perfectly fine. And also, they were forced to be enslaved as well to try to help mine for goods as well. So, the conquering of this. The pillaging of the resources. Massive digging in order to extract the resources. Gold, silver, looking for ivory, all sorts of goods. And so the land's cut down. The indigenous are forced to find these goods for the Europeans. Religion is forced onto these people. Therefore, culture and language is also lost. So natives are forced to follow Christianity or they would even be killed. Now, you got to think about this in terms of what are the pros outweigh do the pros outweigh the cons? That's up to you to think about it. Now, how did all of this Age of Exploration, what did it lead to? It led to the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange, remember that exchange of goods from the triangular trade from goods from Europe to Africa to the Americas and back to Europe? These were the exchange of goods, diseases, humans all over the world. Tobacco, fruits, vegetables, African slaves, gold, guns, sugar, corn, pigs, chickens, cattle, you name it, it was traded all over the world. It went in that triangle from Europe to Africa to the Americas back to Europe. That is probably the biggest impact of European exploration. Now, Hernan Cortez was a Spanish explorer during this Age of Exploration. He invaded Mexico and killed the Aztecs with disease. The Aztecs were considered the largest empire in Central and North America in the present-day Mexico. And when Cortez and his Spanish invaders came in, really disease is what killed off this massive empire. And because of that, it showed that the Europeans had an upper hand over the Native Americans, the indigenous. Now, there was one person who came to the New World with Columbus, and he saw in the 1490s just how horrible imperialism and colonization was. He saw the natives were enslaved, that disease was killing the natives, that they were being forced to work, forced to convert to Christianity. He went back and said to the European governments, this is how bad, this is what's going on over there, and we need to make adjustments. And really, it was a big stain on Columbus's and the Spanish's trade routes. He was the first to really expose the horrors of what exploration was really doing. Now we kind of shift gears. Sharia. Sharia is Islamic law. So for example, no eating pork. Women have to wear a headdress a head or face covering, not a headdress. women not being allowed to drive, certain things like that during Ramadan, right? Fasting during Ramadan. Sharia is the law of what's going on. Shifting gears again, what does GDP mean? And what is GDP? GDP is gross domestic product. Gross meaning the accumulation of, domestic product meaning the products made in a country. It's the total value of a nation's production of goods. So the United States manufactures approximately $27 trillion worth of goods. Therefore, the nation is worth $27 trillion. That is the total value of production of goods and services. Shifting gears again, but staying in our geography unit, what were 2 positives and 2 negatives of the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta? This is a big one because we live it every day. That's actually the reason why North Springs, Sandy Springs, Buckhead, and Medical Center MARTA stations exist. They exist because of the 96 Olympics as people started to grow in population, expand past outside the city, again improving MARTA and public transit because people needed to get from where they lived to the games. Also, new athletic facilities and housing were built for the games. Mercedes-Benz Stadium has taken over the Georgia Dome, but the Georgia Dome was built to host athletic events. There was a park built downtown, and new green spaces were built all over the city so people could publicly enjoy the city of Atlanta. The Olympics also brought billions of dollars to the city. Delta, UPS, all of these people are all coming and they're spending their money in Atlanta, buying food, buying goods. So it brought billions to the city. And it enabled the city to become more modern because things needed to be built. The downtown area, they took older areas, they destroyed old town areas to build new facilities in Atlanta. The airport was expanded. Again, MARTA was improved. So the Atlanta Olympics did a lot of good for the city. Shifting gears, how did the thinkers of the scientific revolution change the ways of the old Roman and Greek thinkers? Well, I don't have the answer typed down here, but it's pretty straightforward. They actually challenged the church and then tried to prove all of the ideas of the Roman and Greek thinkers is right. They tried to prove these theories either right or wrong. Was the Earth the center of the solar system and galaxy? No, it's not. The Earth is a part of a solar system meaning sun system. And the solar system, the sun is the center of the solar system. They also tried to challenge the ways of how disease spread. So that's what number 46 is. Sorry I didn't type it down. We're going to get through number 50 today. What were 2 major inventions during the scientific revolution? The microscope, which discovered bacteria. Antoine van Leeuwenhoek, he's one of my favorites. The concept of the scientific method by Francis Bacon. How to conduct scientific experiments to ensure whether or not these theories are true, whether these theories are not true, proving what's going on. The scientific revolution, they debunked theories of the universe. They basically said, no, we've done research through telescopes, we've done research through microscopes, we've done research through barometers and thermometers, and this is how the world functions. And also, Newton discovered the concept of gravity and the laws of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Gravity pulls things to the earth at the same rate, 9.8 meters per second squared. I don't know how he did the math for that, but he got it. We're looking at Chernobyl in 1986, a massive nuclear disaster that was the worst in human history. Transboundary pollution was rampant. Nuclear pollution spread all over Europe and showed tremendous dangers of nuclear power and man-made pollution. Remember that nuclear reactor? It blew up in Ukraine. It was doing a safety test. It failed. Massive amounts of radiation spread. Thousands of times the power of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. People were getting thyroid cancer. Children and animals were born with birth defects. When the plant exploded, Pripyat, which is a city in Ukraine, and Kiev, which is a city in Ukraine, they felt the effects of this radiation. It completely changed the way nuclear power needed to be evaluated, and really, it destroyed wildlife and destroyed forestry and made pretty much 230 square kilometers inhabitable Uninhabitable, excuse me, uninhabitable for people in the Soviet Union. Nationalism. We'll end with this one. Nationalism is the extreme love for one's nation and the belief that your nation is superior to other nations. Remember, we looked at the Olympic Games and the World Cup. Those are instances of nationalism where these nations are trying to prove that they are athletically superior to other nations. I'm going to stop us there, and we'll go from there in the next video. Enjoy.